From the bylanes of Kamalia and the rugged landscapes of Quetta, they escaped to India with little more than the shirts on their backs. In the partition-ravaged cities of Amritsar, Agra and Delhi, 4 of the 6 Munjal brothers, Dayanand, Satyanand, Brij Mohanlal and Om Prakash, built their business part by part. Armed with nothing but self-belief, the brothers began with trading and then manufacturing bicycle parts, which soon evolved into the production of bicycles. For post-independence India, the hero bicycle gave wings to the aspirations of the common man. By 1986, 30 years after its inception, Hero Cycles became the largest bicycle maker in the world. In the next 15 years, the motorcycle venture, Hero Honda, repeated the feat. And both pole positions are held firmly even today. Hero's story is about humble beginnings, the refugee entrepreneurial spirit, hard work, and zeal. It looks at how 4 brothers with little formal education created a world-class enterprise. This is the incredible tale of a principle-driven organization that created exceptional value for a society that desperately needed transportation. How did 4 brothers with distinct personalities work like a cohesive unit and build a manufacturing behemoth? How did they synchronize their strengths? How did they resolve their differences, if any? The story goes deep inside the family spirit, the parivar, that brought together employees, customers, channel partners, suppliers and local communities to create success, welfare and well-being for millions. This is the making of Hero. 4 brothers, 2 wheels, and a revolution that shaped India.
Thank you. There was a film on making of the hero. We are absolutely delighted to have with us Sunil Kant Munjal in conversation with Raghunath Mashelkar. Welcome back to the 14th Jaipur Literature Festival, protected by Dettol. Sunil Kant Munjal's book, The Making of a Hero, 4 Brothers, 2 Wheels, and a Revolution That Shaped India, follows the story of the Munjal brothers and their inspiring journey in setting up the Hero enterprise. Munjal's narrative not only unfolds his family's legacy in building up the iconic Hero Cycles and Hero Honda motorcycle brand, but also gives us a glimpse into the developing years of India's economy. Raghunath Mashelkar is a National Research Professor and was the Director General of CSIR, as well as the President of the Indian National Science Academy. Conversation with Mashelkar, Munjal unfolds his family history and their socio-economic footprint over the past 7 decades of India's history. Sunil Kant Munjal is one of the founder promoters of the Hero Group, India's premier automotive manufacturing group that has evolved from being the world's largest bicycle maker to the largest 2-wheeler market. He's the chairman of Hero Enterprise with interests in insurance distribution, steel making, real estate, and corporate training. He chairs the board that runs the Doon School and sits on the boards of the IIM Ahmedabad, ISB, and SRCC. He has co-founded BML Munjal University, BMU, and is president of the Dayanand Medical College and Hospital, Ludhiana. He's also served as president of the CII and AIMA and has been a member of Prime Minister's Council on Trade and Industry and was on government task forces that prepared the ground for India's banking and insurance reforms. Munjal has set up the Serendipity Arts Foundation, which aims to revive patronage in the arts. He's also the president of the Ludhiana Sanskritik Samagam, which supports performing arts across North India. He's chronicled the incredible saga of Heroes founders in his new book titled The Making of Hero. Raghunath Mashelkar, presently National Research Professor, was DG of ICSIR and President of India's National Science Academy. Dr. Mashelkar's numerous honors include 44 honorary doctorates, as well as a Padma Shri, Padma Bhushan, and Padma Vibhushan. He is well known for his transformative leadership of the research and innovative ecosystem. Please do remember to comment and ask questions by typing it into the comment section below, and we'll ask these questions of Professor Mashelkar and, of course, Sunil Munjal. Ladies and gentlemen, the making of hero. Sunil Kant Munjal in conversation with Professor Raghunath Mashelkar. Professor Mashelkar, Sunil Munjal, welcome to the Jaipur Literature Festival 14th edition. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sanjay, for having me in this great festival. This is a very special afternoon for me, I must say. For a number of reasons, Sunil, it is always inspirational to talk to you. But it's even more inspirational to talk to you about your most inspiring book, Making of Hero. So thank you for choosing me to have a conversation with you. Well, this is a great story. In fact, to me, it's a story of India. It's a great story of creating a global brand with an Indian soul. You know, today we talk about Atmanirbhar Bharat, but this was Atmanirbhar Bharat that Brij Lal Munjal ji created along with his brothers. In fact, it was Atmanirbhar Bharat with Atma Vishwas, with Atma Samman, you know, self-confidence and self-dignity. And it's a fantastic story that is lined up here. You know, I remember meeting iconic Brij Lal Munjal ji when I was in Delhi as Director General of CSI. And what struck me each time was what a wonderful human being he was. Even his handshake, you know, the humility was incredible. I remember one incident when you must have heard of number of Mashelkar committees. One of them was National Auto Fuel Policy. You know, we had to set standards on Euro 2, Euro 3, Euro 4, the timelines, the specifications. And I was the chairman of that committee. And I remember writing to manufacturers because we wanted to know, you know, as to what sort of roadmap we should have so that the nation doesn't suffer because it has to be green growth. It can't just be green. It has to be green growth. And I remember sending mails to some leaders, expecting them to send somebody. And I remember Brij Lal Munjal ji himself came. Rahul Bajaj himself came. And I was very surprised. And of course, with all humility, he said, no, when you call, we have to come. A fantastic human being, besides being a great sort of entrepreneur. I would just say that as far as I'm concerned, you know, I look at this book as a kind of a timeless inspirator. I want to congratulate you, Sunil, for winning the Business Book of the Year 2020 in Tata Literature Live Festival. I happen to be, as you know, the jury, and therefore I have read this book page to page, by the way.
Right.
It's over because again, while conversing with you, I got up at 4:30 in the morning and sort of went through it again. It's a fascinating story. And what is most interesting about it is it's a timeless inspirator. You know, many times we say context decide the content, and the context changes, the content changes. But in this particular case, as it will be unraveled as we go along, when you and I talk, it's a timeless inspiration. And that's why it won the award, because there are so many lessons today as India wants to emerge as Atmanirbhar Bharat with Atmavishwas that we can really lean on. And I would end by saying, Sunil, thank you very much for this great gift you have given to our society. So with that, let me start my dialogue with you. I think the first thing is that we all look at you as a businessman, as a business promoter, as a technopreneur, I would say, because I know your love for technology and so on and so forth. How come you decide to become an author? What make you take the plunge? And where did you find that time to even write such a fantastic book?
So it was not a deliberate thing, actually. The request for us to get a book written on my father and his brothers, has been coming for decades on end. And my father would always say, no, it's not nice to talk about yourself. And he would just politely decline every single time. He finally did agree, actually, after he was 90. As you know, he was still going to office every day in those days. And he agreed. And the team that we picked was busy doing another project. And they said, give us some time, we will come back and do it. And they were, of course, delighted to be picked. But unfortunately, by the time they got free and came back, it was too late. We lost him. And within 1 year, we lost all three brothers. The eldest one, Dayanand, had passed away in 1968. So this request then continued to come. So I thought this story certainly needs to be told. And who can do it better than somebody who's an insider, who's seen this unfold from the inside? And which is how I took on the role and responsibility for putting this down. And I was highly encouraged by Mr. Rai, who was then our MD, he's now continues to play a big role in Hero Cycles. And he has worked with each one of the senior members directly himself. So he himself was also gathering information on them, getting material together for a book. So that's how this came to be. And for me, it was actually a result of passion on the family's history and story and what India had done to transform itself.
Wonderful. I'm sure you must have enjoyed doing this and will continue to enjoy. As I said, this is a gift to the society. One question I have is the following. Actually, this could have easily been a biography purely on Brij Munjal, okay? Because his contribution to the success was so overwhelming. But then why did you decide to write this book about the four brothers? That's interesting, because the making of Hero, the first line is four brothers. Why was that?
Yeah. So that's a good question. And I have been asked many times, by the way, because you're right that my father had probably the most prominent public positioning amongst the brothers. And he had got many, many rewards, many awards in his lifetime. As you know, you knew him quite well. But each time when he would go up to receive an award, he would say, this is not mine. This is for all of us. This is for the large parivar. This is for my family. This is for the community. This is for the people who work in the company. And in this conversation that Mr. Rai and I had, I did originally start out writing about just him. In the conversation itself, I changed my mind. I said, that would not be right. His style was, this is everybody's initiative and effort. It belongs to everybody. So the right thing would be to write about all of them. And I think many people actually particularly have appreciated that the role was recognized, because even those who were not very prominent publicly were actually playing key roles. All the members in the family played very significant, important and key roles to make the organization what it was. And that's why I thought the story should be about all of them together.
Wonderful.
It was also their culture. It was also their style. It was also their philosophy.
Yes, I understand. But I'm going to keep on probing you on the title of the book, because the title has a big story in that itself.
Yes.
So the title again is The Making of Hero, Four Brothers, Two Wills, and a Revolution That Shaped India. You have used the word revolution, and I'm sure it has been done deliberately. So can you elaborate on that?
Yes, you're right. It was very deliberate. And this is another question people had asked, actually. Why is this a revolution? If you think about it, And you mentioned this at the start yourself, Atmanirbhar Bharat is a conversation we're having today, but the concept of an independent, confident, an institution, not just an organization, an institution which reaches out to all around it and focuses on excellence in all aspects. Excellence in procurement by setting up a JIT system long before we knew it was called JIT. Excellence in operation, it was an organization which was constantly innovating and improving. Excellence in governance practices. So we had independent members on our private companies' boards. We had female on the boards. We had independent board members telling us what we could or could not do. And they were free to say anything in these private companies. The transactions which took place between connected companies were always arm's length. And I'm talking way before any of this became fashionable or regulations, etc. Building an organization here based in India, but making it globally competitive, reaching out and building partnerships across the globe. So in some ways, it led to many things which later on became norms and allowed India to develop. Ludhiana is today probably the largest center of bicycle components in the world. And I can say with some modesty, it was triggered by Hero Cycles and the way it actually evolved. That allowed the culture of manufacturing to seep through many parts of small industry in India. For us, it allowed this to become the practices or the achievements which led Honda to pick us as a partner, which allowed us to build Hero Honda, which went on to become the largest two-wheeler company in the world. So clearly, and each of these, as you know, the automotive industry is the most evolved industry in India. And it's well known that Maruti and what was earlier called Hero Honda were the two which took the lead in creating all the best practices in India within the industry. So which is why I've used the word revolution, because many of these actually were triggered early on, not just today in the last 5 or 10 years, but 50, 60 or 70 years ago.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. I mean, Sunil, you use the word best practices. My guru, C.K. Prahlad, used to talk about not best practice, but next practice. Because when you are following somebody's best practice, you are a follower, you are copying him. And when you do what he does, you say, I have achieved that. But you don't look beyond. So you used to always talk about looking at the next practice. So you turn yourself back into the 60s and so on and so forth. So at that time, as you are saying, he looked at just in time, which became the best practice, which we thought we are borrowing from somebody else. Triple bottom line, we start talking about it seriously. He talked about it then. It was the next practice. He looked at these arm's length related party transactions, for example. We talk about it. In governance, we take it seriously. He did it, actually. Or keep it simple, that kiss, or whatever, we look at it as something new. So what I'm amazed, he was well ahead of his time, isn't it?
Yeah, also in reaching out. So one of the things I think which were always helpful was both the passion and aspiration were combined to reach beyond the means that were available. Because the means were very meager. They started literally, as the film said at the beginning, they started literally with the shirts on their backs. Nothing else except a hope and a prayer. And it was originally started to provide for the families, but it was the spirit with which they worked. It was the culture and ethos that they introduced of integrity, of hard work, and always looking beyond how to continuously keep improving. And I think that's what helped them not constrain themselves to what is going on around you, but how to better and compete also with yourself, not just with what's going on outside.
No, that's very interesting. And that is why this book is so precious. Because it is not just about making of hero. Each one of us has in us to make ourselves a hero. Provided we keep our levels of aspiration high, That's what it says. And as I always like to say, there are no limits to human endurance, no limits to human imagination, no limits to human achievement, excepting the limits you put on yourself. I mean, no limit to human endurance. You saw during COVID, for example, that little girl carrying her father 1,200 kilometers, driving 8 days, Jyoti Prasad, incredible. So that is the part that I find very, very inspiring indeed. And talking about the means part of it, once again, I go back to C.K. Prahlad. I remember I'm the chairman of Reliance Innovation Council. And when we started, we had C.K. Prahlad as a member and Nobel laureates and so on and so forth. Very powerful. And the very first thing, and because Reliance is a story of growth, as you know, not only just growth, but exponential growth. They say growth is life, but nowadays they say exponential growth is life. Okay. Now, I remember in the very first meeting, CK said something which is, you will love it because he's saying the same thing that you said. He said there is a resource and there is an aspiration. And as resources go up, aspirations come down. Idea is to keep aspirations always higher than the resource. And I think that's exactly what you are saying. So it matches perfectly. Moving on, I'm getting into the process because this is a story which starts in 1920s and goes up to 2020s. So there's a big narrative, and most of the protagonists for the first few decades are not alive today. So how did you build the narrative? Must have been a challenging job to do it, particularly in the pre-independence period.
So not only was it challenging, it was also, in fact, the most exciting part of doing this because it was well before I was born. So I actually delved into India's history and I spoke with people who were around from that time, which were very few. Some of them we met who were not able to give us a lot. But actually, as I met more and more people, the story started to kind of evolve. And it was interesting how the same incident was seen differently by different people as well. So it was gathering what was going on amongst the family, the people, India's economy, India's politics, and the world. So when all of these are put in a melting pot, that's when I started to draw the narrative from here of what then turned into this this story of the making of Hero. And I did bounce this off later on with some experts before the book went into publishing to make sure that it was actually and factually correct, that we were not straying from what were historical facts, because the idea was not to color it. The idea was to just put it out there as it is. And I think it finally turned out, because I got messages from many people subsequently who read the book and said, this reminds me of so-and-so, this reminds me of this incident, or what I'd heard from my parents or something, or I'd read in a book. So, and also it was a bit painful writing about the partition, because that has been one of the most tragic things that modern history has shown this nation. How by just drawing a line, a political line, we broke up a country and broke up people and families into separate nations. So it was a very emotional experience too. It was not just exciting. It brings many emotions which you don't normally encounter in day-to-day life.
Yeah, I agree. In fact, therein lies your challenge also, because if somebody asks you, how do you describe this book? Is it a business book, although you got the Business Book of the Year award? Is it history book? Is it management book? I would say it is all, combined into one. That's what makes it, don't you think so?
In fact, when we were starting out, the publisher asked me, HarperCollins, as you know, published this book. And I need to thank them. And actually, there were many people I need to thank for this book. Book contributed with ideas, support, encouragement, writing support, all kinds of stuff. I have many people to thank. And of course, Sanjay and Namita and William to thank for this session alongside you, Dr. Mashelkar. But when a publisher asked me, who are you writing this for? I thought about this for just a minute. And I said, this is a book for everyone. This is a book for a business leader. It's a book for a manager. It's a book for an entrepreneur. It's a book for a startup. It's also a book, by the way, for a student. It's also a book for the housewife and the lay public. Because there are parts of this story. It's a family story. It's India's story. It's the world story. It's an economic story. It's a story of reaching, as we said, beyond our means. It's a story of aspiration. It's a story of hope. It's a story of not giving up on failure. Since you read the book very well, you know how many times, what kind of challenges were faced in the journey while building this. This was not an easy journey. From the outside, of course, anything that's successful looks glamorous, but we don't often realize what goes into making these, what difficulties, what challenges, and how you overcome challenges. So it is in many ways an all-encompassing story, which is therefore relevant for anyone to read. And that's why it's not packaged only as a business book. While it's being recognized by many as a business book, I was at the airport the other day. They told me it's still in the rack at the number 1 in the business book rack. So I was asking him, why are you putting this here? He's saying, "Ye to business book hai." From his point of view, it is a business book because it is about a company, but it is not just about the company.
Yeah, it is true. In fact, you have beautifully summarized the values at the end. To me, that was the most engaging part, by the way. What is the distilled wisdom that comes out from this journey? And as you rightly said, it is like this: purpose, perseverance, and passion matter. He had the big purpose, the North Star, each one of us. जिसको ध्रुव तारा कहते हैं ना, वो होना चाहिए. Then there is a perseverance, because it is always too early to quit. Winners are never quitters, and quitters are never winners. Okay, and doing it with passion. Now, I see that here. Number one. Number two, I always, for young people, particularly scientists, I always tell them, interpret fail in a different way. Because in science, when we do experiment, there are more failures than successes. So I said, fail, F-A-I-L, is first attempt in learning. Your best guru is your last mistake, as long as you learn from it. So therefore, I think what I would suggest is that sometime later, if it is possible, some of this distilled wisdom, of that must get into textbooks. School textbooks, college textbooks, etc., etc. Just a suggestion, because I myself, as an old man, found it so inspiring. For young people, it will be very different. Moving on, I want to reflect on the present India. And we consider you as one of the topmost leaders in this, and particularly we are looking at manufacturing and so on and so forth. Now, if you look at the fascinating details, how your father and uncles, they worked, with Ramgarias to design, make machines, cycle parts in 1960s. And, it was also manufacturing when there was no money, no machines, no parts, etc. But still, they could sort of do that. And today we talk about Atmanirbhar Bharat, and we are comfortable with service, but as far as manufacturing is concerned, as you know, there are big challenges. So therefore, what is the current inspiration from the lessons from this particular book with regard to the challenges that we have in making Atmanirbhar Bharat?
So I think the lesson is quite clear that if you look beyond, again, going back to what we said earlier, if you look beyond, the possibilities are immense. And they were willing to learn from anybody and everybody. The Ramgarhias are a community which exists in Punjab who work with their hands. So one of the things they always did was respect people that work with their hands, which unfortunately in our society and communities, we do not do often enough. In fact, most times we actually look down upon people who work with their hands, and recognizing that innate skill, which is sometimes almost genetic, was one of the unique qualities that they actually built into the organization. Not just accepting, not that making them part of the journey, but respecting them and celebrating those skills as well. And constantly building on those and trying to create a combination of men and machines together. So there were lots of experimentation with computers early on, with robotics, with automation. 40 years back, the paint shops, the plating shops, the welding, all were on robotics already at Hero Cycles. I'm not even talking now of when Hero Honda was set up, but this is way before that. Even in the bicycle business itself, these kind of technologies were started to be brought in to get the best tools available to offer productivity to people. So it was a combination of these. And I think that's necessary for us to remember now as we talk of building manufacturing that is completely doable. We just have to have the right approach and the attitude and work this with integrity and honesty. Completely possible. And you look at Indians worldwide, they're doing so well in companies and services and also manufacturing. So why can we not do this here? And as you said yourself, there are enough examples in India. We just need to not allow these only to be islands of excellence. We need that islands to leak out, but to be available to a much larger section of society and to industry.
Absolutely. The institutionalization, democratization of this is very, very critical. Let me move on to something. When we talk about business, it is all about doing well. But there is something called doing good for the society. All right. And many times it is doing well by doing good, not doing well and doing good. I differentiate between the two. Doing well and doing good means you make a lot of money, like Bill Gates did, and then you create a foundation. What am I doing for the poor? But here it is doing well by doing good. Doing good itself is a good business. Then we talk about corporate social responsibility, etc. What I found fascinating was your family is involved with the Arya Samaj movement and so on and so forth. I personally witnessed, Sunil, your commitment. For example, 2014, when you decided to do BML Munjal University, I remember I had a half-a-day session with you. I came over all the way to Delhi to talk to you and so on and so forth. So I want you to reflect on those times, these times, and what we need to do, and really the responsibility that we have towards the society for doing well by doing good.
So I think let me go back to the reason and logic why we as a family have been doing this. Part of it, as you said, comes from the exposure, I guess, to the Arya Samaj, as you know, was launched as a reformist movement, not so much as a religion or a faith. It was a reformist movement against practices like sati, like gender disparity, like the caste system. Basically, it said, base yourself on facts and do the right thing. The right thing will always be the right thing. It cannot change. And partly coming from there, and partially the realization that we are very fortunate and blessed. We live in a nation where millions, hundreds of millions of people do not even get 2 square meals. So just through what has happened, the opportunities that we have got, we have been able to better ourselves and create this environment for our families. So it's almost a responsibility for all of us to do the right thing and reach beyond ourselves to communities, if not to everybody, at least to communities who are around us, who can benefit from our knowledge, our experience, and our resources. So early on, we started initiatives like getting involved in education and healthcare and clean drinking water, in integrated development of villages. University is one you mentioned. We have many, many such others. We have 30,000 children studying in our high schools right now. And the last one that we are now focused on is arts and culture. Another part of the rich cultural heritage that we were handed over through centuries. And this was considered the richest heritage in the world. A lot of it actually has declined, some has even died. So we are attempting to not just protect it, but also revive it and make it thrive and turn this into the strength of the region, which it is, which it always was.
Yeah, fantastic. I just have been told that there are just 12 minutes left for ending the session. So very quickly, a very brief, you are a second generation Munjal. There is a third generation Munjals, etc. Are they being mentored in the same way? Because as somebody has said, I only think of the future because that is where I'm going to spend the rest of my life. Yep. So what does the future look like?
No, that's actually very critical. So early on, and as you know, we restructured the group now, many of us work independently. When we were working together, we would encourage all the young members of the next generation to get the best quality education that each one could, and then come back and train somewhere, and preferably outside of the group, demonstrate themselves, get all the work ethics, and then come in and start at the bottom in our system. While we restructured, we believe quite peacefully and efficiently. This is one of the few restructurings that was done without any active fight amongst the members of the family or destroying any business value. The sum of the parts is much larger today than it was then. And many of the family members have continued the same philosophies, the same ethos, the same culture, and the same practices. While the businesses are owned separately, the family continues to be together, and we encourage each other to continue these practices of the young being exposed and encouraged. But I'll tell you one thing which is still missing in most business families, and this is global, by the way. We tend to make our youngsters very good managers, business managers in most cases. But we tend to forget that we also need to make them good owners, good, responsible civic citizens. The values of the families and the foundations of the families also need to be engaged with the youngsters early on for them to get a much better, well-rounded exposure. And I'm still not sure whether even we are doing enough. We are trying to do some of this, but I'm not sure whether we are doing enough.
No, that's excellent. We had decided to give some 10 minutes because I know there will be lots of questions. It's such a fascinating book. You yourself are such a fascinating leader. So I'll go into the question answer session now. The first question is Ashish. He's wanting to know, how is a good business story different from a case story? How did you manage to tell this story through different themes, even though your book is not arranged chronologically? I think this is an excellent question. Excellent question, because that had occurred to me also, my friend.
Yes. So this was a very deliberate thing. I can tell you, this was done very deliberately to draw multiple strands, because there are so many players in this story. To draw multiple strands, as I said, India is also a player. History and economics are also a player, as is politics, as are the many members of the family and others. So the idea was to draw many strands and then pull them together into a story. So therefore, it is not like a typical case study. And it's also not in pure chronological order. As you yourself mentioned, it talks about the brand at one place, talks about the value at another place. But the thread of the story is running through the book. So this was actually a bit of a difficult exercise to do. Is drawn up like we draw a complex matrix organization. That's exactly the same way this book was done.
That's correct. There is an important question by Niharika. She says, what are the measures taken by Hero Enterprise in terms of environmental impact of the system of production? We talked about triple bottom line. Please.
So this is something that we, as both a family and a group, have been actively practicing for many decades, long before any of this became statutory, long before it became fashionable, etc. Again, I'll go back to the Hero Cycles days, because that is the oldest company in the entire family and the organization, which was a large company. In Hero Cycles, for the plating plants, because electroplating was done for many components of the bicycles, an effluent treatment plant was set up 40 plus years ago. This is way before anybody thought of doing anything except discharging your effluent directly into the drains. That used to be common practice, by the way. It was not considered a bad form. That was normal. So this was installed in Hero Cycles. Within the factories, we have been turning these into green environments. In Rockman, one of our companies in Ludhiana, which my brother Suman looks after, we put in strawberries and other rare plants to grow in the plants. When we put up the cold rolling plant in Ludhiana, we put green plants inside the factory to make sure the air quality is clean, so these plants will continue to be prosperous. When Hero Honda was set up, the predecessor of Hero MotoCorp, the uniform given to workers, I'm not talking technology now, I'm telling you about philosophy, by the way. The uniform given to workers was white. They were also given white fabric gloves to wear, so that if there is any dirt anywhere, it will show. So you have to keep it clean. So you design it so that you force yourself to do the right thing. The framework is designed in a manner that you end up doing the right thing. In the Haridwar plant that we put up for the two-wheelers, we created the world's largest green roof. When the Neemrana factory was put up, it was called the greenest plant in the world. So these are all now called green factories.
I see. Wonderful. There is one more question about, it is to the government or to you, I'm not sure, but it says, what changes need to be made to ensure the ease of doing business becomes a reality, not just government propaganda?
So to be fair to the government, if you see since the early 90s, we have come a long way. But the reality is we are still not where we need to be. And there are two things going on here. Part is the bureaucratic framework that we inherited. It's very hard to dismantle all that framework. Second is, as things are improving, as we get more exposure globally, our expectation has also gone up. So the complaints that we make are frankly, rightfully the ones that we are making now, because we want to be and expect to be treated in the best conditions in the world.
Yeah.
So there is still some distance to go for us to truly have ease of operation. At this moment, when we look at the World Bank rankings, etc., they only look at cities like Delhi and Mumbai. The reality is that the state study that we started was a wonderful initiative to compare states, but we have to go to every part of India to improve the situation and make it easy so that true entrepreneurship shows up, and not the hurdles which hold us back from tapping into the true potential. And as you said, each of us has enormous potential. We need not just to harness it, we need to collate it together and in a strand for India, for the nation to truly be where it needs to be and where we would like to see it.
Yeah. Thank you very much. There is one question which is directed towards me. It says, you have achieved so much, you have made impossible possible. Is there anything left to be done? With that, I will end, because, we have just left.
It's a good question. It's a good question for you. Yes.
So all that I would say is like this, when I was 28, I thought there is 50 years to do whatever I want to do. Now that I'm 78, I don't know even whether I have 5 years to do what I want to achieve, basically. And therefore, till the last day of my life, I will get up in the morning and I will just say, my best is yet to come. And maybe today it will come. And I don't know when will be my last day, but even on that day, that's what I'm going to say. That would be my answer. Thank you. Thank
Wonderful.
you. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much. I enjoyed that conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Mashelkar. Thank you, Sunil Munjal. And absolutely right. There's so much to leverage. There's so much of potential in India to leverage, to make entrepreneurs. So I do hope that some of what you've said will come to pass. Most importantly, I'm hoping that Professor Mashelkar and myself will receive some strawberries from your plant that we talked about. This is strawberry season, so we look forward to that. But truly, it's been an honor to have Professor Raghunath Mashelkar with us today in conversation with Sunil Kant Munjal. We thank our celebration partner, Diageo, and thank you all for watching. Being such a great audience, please remember to stay logged on. You can continue to be here, or you can go to the front lawn for the next round of sessions. And as you're aware, we continue to be impacted by the pandemic. I think the cultural sector has been the most affected. The creative economy has really come to a grinding halt. And any kind of contributions you can make while you're watching us, we'd be more than grateful. So please do contribute to Teamwork Arts. And please tweet using the hashtag Jaipur Literature Festival 2021 and at Jaipur Lit Fest. The festival and all of us are protected by Dettol. Stay safe, stay masked. See you at the next session.